Welcome to the WrestleTalk News. I'm Pete Quinnell. Last week's news was primarily dominated by a new batch of WWE releases, where over 20 wrestlers were fired from the company. One of these releases was Alexis Gray, who signed with WWE in spring this year and was part of their Performance Center class. Gray spoke to WrestlingNews.co and was asked if she expected layoffs to come because of the merger. I personally did have that thought in the back of my mind, but because I was so new, I kind of didn't accept that maybe I was a part of the people that were going to get laid off. So when I did get the call, it was baffling to me because I felt like things were finally making sense in the company. I felt like I understood what they were requesting of us to just be cut off. She went on to say that she won't stop wrestling because of this, so she's actively looking for a wrestling school to continue her journey. Best of luck, Alexis Gray. Someone who's been struggling with a severe lack of screen time as of late is Johnny Gargano, who hasn't been seen on TV in bloody ages. He returned at a house show recently and lost to a Moss, so you know, going great. There were at one point hints of a DIY reunion on TV with Tommaso Ciampa, but those have quietly gone away too. Ryan Satin was in attendance for last night's episode of Raw, and he claimed on X that during the commercial break, a kid sat next to him got Ciampa to come over, where the kid told him to get DIY going again, to which he claims Ciampa replied, "I'm trying." If this is true, there appears to be somewhat of a back and forth here. And then the question becomes, if Ciampa's pitch story isn't being shut down by Triple H, then is it being shut down by Vince McMahon? Who knows? Maybe Trips doesn't want to do DIY either. Because he might have eyes for another story currently, as Jey Uso has been in the spotlight as of late since his move to Raw. Getting involved in the Judgment Day story along with Owen, Zayn, and Cody, he's being positioned at the top of the Monday Night Raw roster. And this is seemingly by design, counter to what some people thought might happen when he went to Raw and fizzle out with no Roman Reigns to be his antagonist. Fightful Select is reporting that WWE thought that the Bloodline story they had planned for the summer would launch Jey into single superstardom, and that moving Jey to Raw was part of a longer-term plan for him, in a heavily featured role that would carry him through at least the next 2 months. Hey, War Games is in 2 months, probably. Wonder if that's what they had in mind. It'll be curious to see what Jey gets up to after this story is done and whether his momentum will continue. There's a bunch more news today, such as Fastlane plans for that handicap match, wonder what those could be, some hilarious stories of Vince McMahon's manic last-minute changes from Matt Riddle, Dax Harwood, and Lance Storm, the TV show Heels being cancelled, and more, so check out WrestleTalk.com for the latest on everything. Now, over to Luke.
Thank you for that well-read bit of news. It's now time for another Match of the Year candidate. So everyone, please welcome a man named on the Warrington Guardian's 30 under 30 list, Mark Marcuson.
Hi, Luke. Incidentally, I came 29th.
High praise indeed.
Thank you so much. Our Match of the Year this week comes from GCW's UK show, and as a proud Northwesterner, I was thrilled to see they were visiting. I couldn't pass it up, so I got all my vaccines and protective clothing and visited Liverpool. The match in question is for the GCW World Championship. Blake Christian defending against the UK's Leon Slater. Christian is someone who was sorely underused by the big American companies. Not naming any names, but he flourishes on the independent scene in front of rabid crowds who eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling, especially here in the UK. His skill finally being appreciated in ways those big companies never could. All the fans were screaming his name, just a shame he couldn't understand them. And Leon Slater, still a teenager who has been tearing it up all across Britain, getting a world title clash in a show this important to GCW was a thrill to see. Back and forth action that spilled into the ringside area, Christian underestimating his young opponent as the pair traded near falls that had the Scousers cheering, which was nice, as there is objectively nothing to cheer for in Liverpool. Christian had the upper hand at one point, bending Slater's arm back behind him and stamping on it, making a sickening crack. It looked amazing. A springboard 450 was only enough for a near fall before Christian missed a rolling kick and hit the ref. Slater was able to hit a powerbomb and keep the champ down well beyond a 3 count, but with no ref there to make the fall, Christian was able to regain the upper hand, and the valiant challenger was finally brought down with a crossface chicken wing and a stomp for the 1, 2, 3.
I'll stop you there. Let me guess. 20 stars. 20 stars, eh, Mark?
Don't be ridiculous, Luke.
Yeah.
25 stars.
So now my family are from Liverpool, right?
I'm so sorry.
It's better than Manchester.
We'll hopefully have more from Mark in the future, but for now, it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw, aka the Why Can't Raw Be This Good All the Time edition of Monday Night Raw, in about 5 minutes. I think it's fair to say that I've been a bit
down on Raw in the last few months. It's not been a bad show. There hasn't been a bad show since Triple H took over the gig, but it's just been fine. Nothing bad, but nothing spectacular. Some good wrestling, some good promos, some decent angles, but nothing outstanding. It's sort of been on cruise control since SummerSlam, not helped by the fact that the top guy on this brand hasn't had a storyline since his one with Brock ended. But this week felt different. I can't quite put my finger on it. It had the same main events we've seen 1,000 times over, but there was a different feeling in the air. Maybe it's the merger being done. Maybe it's a brand looking to come out swinging after negative news of the firings last week. Maybe they just had a good week. Maybe it was just the crowd. But for whatever reason, this show ruled! Cody opened things and made references to the building being sold out. Take that, AEW, and that we're no longer in the bottom of the third. Take that, Paul Heyman! The Judgment Day came out and it led to a brawl between them, Cody, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Jey Uso, Control-C, Control-V. The twist here this time, though, is that Damian Priest didn't want to do the brawl, but the group were convinced to do so by JD McDonough. Priest freaked out at JD backstage and told him he's not in the group and needed some time to himself to cool down before the main event. Big Bronson Reed beat Otis in a beefy men slapping meat match, which had all of those meat chants that began at All Out a few weeks back, and I'm quite pleased to see that that fun chant has traveled. In that same IC title picture scene, Tommaso Ciampa beat Ludwig Kaiser after Giovanni Vinci accidentally distracted the referee while Kaiser had a clean pin on Tommy Chaps. Stop trying to break up Imperium! Gunther Layton scolded Kaiser and told him that Vinci is now his problem. Stop trying to break up Imperium! Why does Triple H have such a boner for dissension within groups? After being looked over last week for Natalya, Tegan Nox was set up as a challenger for the NXT Women's Championship next week when she beat Natty in a very quick 2-minute match. It wasn't quite enough of a showing for Nox to get over after not being on TV for months on end, but at least she made it onto TV this week. Seth Rollins cut his weekly Totally Fine promo on Shinsuke Nakamura, who responded in the same way that he always does, and a last man standing match was made for Fastlane. I give this segment 2.5 shrugs out of 5. Thankfully, what came next more than delivered. Dominic Mysterio is a great character. The crowd really like to boo him when he's trying to do his promos, and as we saw last week, you can squash him and he'll still retain that heat. It's not what I would do to build a title match, but what do I know? I'm just a mere 40-year-old man in a suit in a studio in Hackney chatting to you while you're watching me on the toilets while you're avoiding your work. Dom has come under fire from fans though for not being all that great in the ring, which has been somewhat exposed during this NXT run, but when he needs to turn it on, he does, emphatically so. And that was on display here as he and Dragon Lee had an awesome match. This was like something you used to get back on Nitro and ECW, the lucha matches you get on Dynamite. This was spectacular stuff. They had a banging NXT TakeOver match on Raw and it ruled. Dom was great, but this match was designed to tell you, the audience, Dragon Lee is the future of our high flyers who will sell merchandise to kids, and it worked. He was fantastic, and of course he is, and the crowd were super hot for it too, helped by Lee's amazing athleticism and Dom's unchallenged heat. A brilliant combination that led to what could be argued as the best thing on this show, if it wasn't for 2 more awesome matches that were still yet to come. Nia Jax cut a promo that sounded like it was being performed by Speak and Spell, and then she squashed Zoe Stark in another 2-minute match. Not a good night for women's wrestling on this 3-hour broadcast, which sadly has become commonplace. Miz TV saw Drew McIntyre as the guest this week, with Miz trying to stir the pot to set up a feud between Cody and Drew. New Day came out and had a brilliant back and forth with Drew about him not helping Jey getting beaten down last week by the Judgment Day, and it tied together several feuds into a nice, neat collective universe, which I actually really liked and appreciated. And Drew's exasperation with New Day's accusations was only heightened by Miz hilariously trying to chime in and make himself part of this story. Drew took on Kofi in another superb match, which had a great finish that again ties feuds together. Ivar came out and attacked Woods at ringside, but rather than get distracted by that like Kofi did, Drew hit the Claymore and won the match, because he's not here to save people, he's not Batman, and he walked to the back just like he did last week as Ivar laid out Kofi with another spectacular moonsault. All of this was great. And the main event was an Attitude Era-esque schmoz, and I loved every second of it. My favorite curry is a paneer tikka dansak. Have that with some Bombay aloo, poppadoms, and maybe a little bit of mango chutney on the side, although that isn't necessary, and you're set to go. And that for me is a perfect Friday night meal. But if I was given that meal, not just every Friday, but every day of the week, I'd probably lose some of my love for it. Still delicious, don't get me wrong, but variety is the spice of life, no pun intended. That's Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Judgment Day. Are the matches always good? Yeah, but do I need to see this many versions of them? No! Which is why I think the schmozzy nature of this one worked so well for me. It also gave us a few red herring finishes. Will it be Jey that accidentally cost the good guys the straps, or will JD get involved to try and get himself acclimated into Judgment Day? Turns out it was the latter, as JD hit Sami with a title belt after a mega brawl with Judgment Day, Cody and Jey, and Priest pinned Zayn to retain the titles. The brawl continued as we continue our journey to War Games, which, may I remind you, is at the end of November. But that said, this was an awesome episode of Raw. Not groundbreaking or newsworthy, just a brilliant show. And because it wasn't a groundbreaking, newsworthy show, I'm not going to give it the full 5, but this is a high 4 out of 5. It's basically a 5. 4.9 out of 5, if you will. But tomorrow sees the launch of the Wednesday Night War, and yesterday Laurie and Dan drafted their rosters over on Parts Unknown, so go and check out who they picked and subscribe to PFK for the first live stream this time tomorrow.
My name is Dan, and I'm here to say
that he's Dan in a cool way.
His rhymes are fresh and they're super cool.
What a great rap.